The following educational video is part of a multi-channel collaboration project called Untold Black History 3. Please check out the playlist to watch all of the other Black History videos that are part of this project. Hello my friends, today I want to talk to you about the mysterious stone artifacts that were made by Africans, and more specifically made on the African continent itself. Why do I phrase it that way? Seems rather obvious that it would be made in Africa, right? Well, here's this thing. Many people today are fixated on this idea that the Olmec heads, statues made in the Americas, were somehow made by Africans. I don't care about this debate. There's all sorts of videos out there debating this question. That's not what we're here for. I'm not here to answer that question for you, okay? I am here to inspire you to learn more about the beauties and wonders of Africa that you've been missing out on. So, what I will instead explain to you is that the whole Olmec controversy is a distraction, okay? It's pure distraction from learning about verifiably African stone art and African art in general. And I ended that sentence that way because, although Africa does have stone art, even beyond what we're going to be talking to today, it has plenty of that, but it also has plenty of beautiful arts and other mediums worthy of awe and respect. The arts of Africa are just as worthy of respect as anything found in the Americas or in Europe or in Asia. The problem is they are mostly ignored by our school systems and the media as well. Now, and seriously, we should be pushing the school system to teach more about Africa. Now, because of that absence of education, many people are left with this African-sized void in their mind, which they fill with things like the Olmec stone sculptures. So let's fill that void, shall we? The main African stone artifacts we'll be talking about today, as I alluded to earlier, are found in Africa. Specifically, they come from the Cross River area, a region which sits between Nigeria, a West African nation, and Cameroon, a nation that many people consider to be Central African. The mysterious stone monoliths found in this area go by several names, including Ikom, Atal, Alaptal, and Akwanshi. They are typically attributed to the Ajagam people, though sometimes more specifically attributed to a subgroup of the Ajagam named Bakor. The Ajagam are also known for other wonderful artworks such as their masks, which I would like to discuss in a future video, because as you know, I'm a big fan of masks. Now, furthermore, we got to mention the Ajagam symbols that make up the Nsibiti script, which is likely the most popular cultural output of the Ajagam people, seeing as it even appeared in the first Black Panther film. And by the way, I have a Black Panther video that talks about these Nsibiti symbols, though it's discussed in the latter half of that analysis. So if you check it out, make sure you take the time to watch the whole thing. Now, before I give you the cultural details and all of that about these stones, there's some things I want to address. I know, for example, someone out there is thinking to themselves, hey, those stone sculptures aren't as realistic as the Olmec are. And my response to that is, so what? I never said they were going to be realistic. They are stylized figures, and that's cool too. The realistic art is overrated, but for the record, yes, Africa does indeed have realistic art, like for example the Ife art, which is also in Nigeria. Besides, deep down, many of you prefer stylization and abstraction too. For example, which of these two images of Goku do you prefer? I bet most of you chose the stylized anime character over the realistic live-action one. And the same could be said for other adaptations as well. By the way, real quick, I want to mention that if you want to help me out, you can do so on Patreon. I'm really struggling through life right now, so any help you can give would be really appreciated. Now let's dig into more detail about the Akwanshi. According to most sources I've read, there are 300 of these monoliths. However, newer info from the British Museum states that actually there are about 400 to 450 engraved stones. Why is there such a big margin of error? I don't know, but it's 400 to 450, somewhere around there. And they are found in the communities in the Ikom area of the Cross River region. And unfortunately, there has been some problems in that the number has gone down to around 250 because, according to the museum, these rocks have endured threats such as fire, theft, vandalism, and neglect. I'll be honest, I don't fully understand that last claim. Like, if the stone is neglected, yeah, maybe some moss gets covered on top of it, but it's still there. So, would that really reduce the number? Oh well. Anyway, finding a solid date for these monoliths has historically also been hard to pinpoint. My favorite old college book, A History of Art in Africa, quite literally notes it down as 16th century question mark. The British Museum source lists the monoliths as being much, much older, with an age of 1,500 years old, so circa 500 AD. Huge, huge gap there. However, according to a research paper by Otobong E. Akpan, carbon dating has shown that the stones produce results that point to the Ikom monoliths as being 1,780 plus or minus 50 years old. In other words, they come from around 200 AD. So yeah, I think this whole artifact dating issue helps emphasize how much we need more archaeological work to be done in Africa. Not only just to uncover more previously undiscovered artifacts, but also to better understand the artifacts that have already been found, yet still have mysterious aspects about them in need of answers. Oh, and if anyone is curious about the heights of these things, well, they vary in size, but the largest are about 6 feet tall. They aren't the largest stone art in Africa, but they are certainly among the most fascinating out there. The monoliths are located in the center of the village, or in the village elder's central meeting place, but there are others that are found in overgrown forested locations as well. It's also worth noting that many Ikom monoliths are arranged in stone circles. Yeah, that's right, Europe does not have some monopoly on stone circles. Africa has them too. Furthermore, there are inscriptions on the stones which some have pointed out as possibly being linked to the Ensibiti script, which is that sacred written language I mentioned earlier. There are multiple oral traditions surrounding the monoliths, and therefore numerous meanings are associated with the stones. Stone circles can be used as spaces for sacrifice and community meetings. They are said to have been created as memorials of the deceased men and women, including kings and queens, title holders, warriors, heroes, or family members, and are representative of powerful ancestor spirits who receive ritual offerings. Their religious significance is also tied to the divine because particular stones are dedicated to the god of fertility, the god of harvest, and the god of war. In certain areas, these artifacts are named after former Entun, which were priestly leaders who performed religious ceremonies. During annual events that celebrate those past Entun, the Akwanshi stones are given offerings. The Akwanshi are then asked for blessings and protection, despite the fact that the Entun tradition itself no longer exists. For a more specific example, we can look at the
and Ta clan, who still worship these stones today. They say the stones were created in memory of previous rulers. And yes, you heard me right. There are still people who still worship these stone sculptures today. Local communities still conduct their traditional practices, beliefs, and rituals at the site of the monoliths. For example, here you can see one of the stones is being ceremonially painted, which is for their yam festival. Which, side note, they're not the only Africans that have a yam festival. By the way, since these stone sculptures are so old, an interesting comment about them in the book I mentioned earlier states that they may have been made by ancestors of the current populations, in which case they represent artistic traditions that have been discontinued, or other peoples who preceded them in the region may have made them. So, that's a fascinating possibility, though until there's proof of that, I think it's best to continue attributing them to the ancestors of the Ajagan people, or more specifically, that subgroup called Bakor. And to get more specific, oral history states that the stones were carved by an age group called Mon-Calm. The exact methods and techniques used to carve the stones were not passed on to modern times, so modern carvers try their best to emulate the old ways as best they can.
By the way, if you ever see photos of these really huge Ikom statues, those are modern ones made to promote the historical sculptures that we've been talking about. So, now that you've learned about an undisputably African stone art tradition, let's finally circle back to the Olmec debate. It's okay for scholars, like Robin Walker for example, to dig into the history of the Olmec. Academics should be free to investigate all possibilities, but it's not okay for the media to constantly shove this Olmec conversation into people's faces, and it's not okay that the majority of people are learning about a debate that may lead nowhere when they could instead be learning about proven art traditions of Africa. You don't need the Olmec to have a sense of pride in black people's accomplishments. Black people have made amazing things on the African continent itself. So do yourself a favor and learn about those African arts and artifacts. And maybe, just maybe, we should all put pressure on our nation's school systems and tell them to teach about the arts and cultures of Africa.
Thank you for watching, and remember to take a look at the rest of the great videos in the Untold Black History 3 playlist. Oh, and also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.